Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined by Robb Ryerse. He is running for US Congress in Arkansas, District 3. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Robb. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. This is out of over 60 candidates I've interviewed. This is my first Republican. Um, However, you are what you call an Eisenhower Republican, which has some progressive ideals. Can you kind of touch on what that means to you, what that lack of a better term label means?
Sure. I'm absolutely convinced that the two-party system is broken and desperately needs to change. I've been horrified at the direction that my party's gone. I'm a lifelong Republican who's just I can't believe the way the party has changed, recently, but then, even before that. You look back through history and there's been times where the Republican Party has been the more progressive party in our country. And so rather than walk away, I decided that I would stay in and fight for the future of the Republican Party. And so I'm absolutely committed to putting the needs of people ahead of what the party establishment wants. And it's been pretty exciting since I've begun this campaign. I've gotten connected with like-minded Republicans all over the country, and from New Jersey to Ohio to North Carolina to California, there are independent or progressive or centrist, lots of different labels get used, Republicans that are running because they think our party needs as much change as the Democratic Party does, and so it's pretty exciting to be a part of what I hope is the front edge of a new movement.
Absolutely. And I think now more than ever, with not just Trump, but, his followers, his supporters, things like that, you are seeing a lot of Republicans who are opening up to many progressive ideas. There's actually tons of Trump supporters who now love Bernie, which is really interesting. Something else that I found fascinating is you are actually endorsed by Brand New Congress, which I believe there's only you and one other Republican that they've ever endorsed. That's what I heard, but I couldn't find who that person is.
Yeah, cutting out a little bit on me, but the other Republican who's running with Brand New Congress is Mark Whitmire in Tennessee. But I think Mark's going to be running as an independent because of the party establishment in Tennessee. It has rules that can keep people who don't toe the party line off the ballot, and so I think Mark's going to end up running as an independent, even though he's been a Republican his whole life. And that's that's what he has to do to kind of lead the charge there, which is unfortunate, but. And just proof that we need to break the two-party system. This isn't, I like to say this, this isn't Republican versus Democrat. This is people versus the political establishment, and that's true in both parties.
Absolutely, and one thing that you do have in common with progressive of all parties is you do not take money from PACs or corporations or anything like that. Do you want to touch on why you decided to go that route?
Yeah, so I have become absolutely convinced that the single biggest issue we face as a country is that our elected leaders are bought and paid for. They are completely beholden to their corporate donors. And I now think of campaign finance reform as the disease that all these other issues, from healthcare to gun safety to net neutrality, they're all symptoms of this disease of how our campaigns are financed. Folks go to Washington and they take corporate money and they take special interest group money, and their loyalty lies with the people who fund their campaigns. And so they consistently put the desires of their donors ahead of the needs of people. And that's why we absolutely have to support and elect people who don't take corporate money at all. Corrupt Democrats are just as bad as corrupt Republicans. And we need people who absolutely refuse to take corporate money, because that's the only way we can return power to the people.
100%. You're right. It is systemic, and it always comes back to that one problem. I actually had Congressman Ro Khanna on, and he came up with a bill to have people in Congress sign that they would never take any more PAC money or anything, and only 6 people signed it. So, I mean, it just kind of, it's an example of how much things need to change. It was funny because I have the kind of, lack of a better term, like a litmus test when I have people on. I'm a burner, and I interview Bernie-crats. So I said, I wanted to know who you voted for in the primary. And as long as it's not Hillary, I don't really care. But interestingly enough, you said Rubio. And I've never met anyone who voted for Rubio. But I know that now you're very passionate about, guns and the children walking out of school and everything. And he's gotten a lot of attention for being just a total, NRA hog. So how does that make you reflect on your choice?
Yeah. So, I'm a lifelong Republican who did not have political aspirations at all. Before I heard about Brand New Congress and got contacted with them, this was not something that was on my radar. So, but I'm also, when it comes to politics, I'm pretty pragmatic. And so, I was looking at voting in the Republican primary the last time around. Living in Arkansas, by that point when we voted, the race was between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, and it was one of those things that I decided to vote for the one I could stomach the best at the time, and that was Marco Rubio. My hope was that he would be a better choice than Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, neither of whom would I entertaining voting for ever. Now, certainly since then, Marco Rubio is deeply disappointed me. And I was not a Rubio supporter. It was just a pragmatic thing, an opposition vote against Trump and Cruz, who were the front runners at the time, especially here in Arkansas.
Right, absolutely. And you guys had a lot of choices. So like a lot. Yeah. I'd love to meet someone who voted for Jeb, just because I think he's hilarious. Inadvertently, but he's hilarious. Hey Bill, he is running as Republican, but as a quote unquote Eisenhower Republican.
Yeah, let me just maybe explain a little bit of the strategy, because this was something that, when I found out about Brand New Congress, I was really, really intrigued by the strategy. And the idea with Brand New Congress is there's a recognition that there are some districts that are bright red, and there's some districts that are deep blue because of demographics, because of gerrymandering, and a whole host of other issues. Rather than abandoning bright red districts or places where there are strong corporate Democrats in deep blue districts, the idea with Brand New Congress is to say, let's find and recruit like-minded people, Republicans in bright red districts and Democrats in deep blue districts, and even though we're in different parties, we're on the same team. And so I happen to live in a district that is bright red. My opponent The last two elections didn't even have a Democratic challenger. He's never gotten less than 72% of the vote. He's never had a primary challenge. This is a bright red district. The likelihood of Arkansas's 3rd congressional district getting caught up in the blue wave is really, really unlikely. And so to give voters a choice, rather than abandon the district altogether, to give voters a real choice, there's a recognition that we can give them that choice in the primary. And so, as a lifelong Republican who kind of fits the bill of what brand new Congress was looking for, it's a very strategic thing. It's a very, I talk with some very partisan Democrats who can't imagine voting for a Republican, but I talk to a lot of pragmatic Democrats who understand that in this district, they're the best chance they have to beat Steve Womack is in the Republican primary. And given that Arkansas has open primaries, there's the opportunity to do that. And that is something that's really intriguing to a lot of people. I think we all get frustrated with our politicians when they don't put people's needs ahead of party. They do what the party establishment wants them to do all the time. And part of the case that I'm making is, listen, we as voters, we the people, we've got to put people ahead of party and not simply judge somebody by the letter after their name. Well, they're a Democrat, so they must be okay, progressives think, or they're a Republican, they must be terrible, progressives think. The reality is that there's a lot of bad Democrats, and there's a growing number of us that I would call good Republicans.
Absolutely. If there's one thing 2016 taught us, it's that a lot of Democrats are definitely way more Republican than Democratic. So that was very interesting when I was looking at your platform, because and you also made a statement, as far as a lot of articles I've been reading, that your typical Republican is actually becoming way more open-minded towards populist ideas like Medicare for all. When you're going and talking to people who are Republicans, are you finding that they're much more open to such ideas?
They really are. Now, certainly, there's a percentage of folks that are never going to vote for me because of the positions I hold, and that's fine. I told my wife when we started this campaign, I said, listen, I'm not going to go trolling for votes. I'm just going to tell people what I really think. And if this district's ready for an independent Republican, a progressive Republican, that's great. And if it's not, then hopefully we can move the conversation forward. We're going to find that out. But, poll came out today. 64% of Republicans support a Medicare option for insurance, and 36% support Medicare for all. I mean, those are numbers that you would, if you didn't see the poll, you would never believe that was the case, because of, the talking heads on TV and how things are demonized. The reality is that most rank and file Republicans are regular people, and regular people are sick and tired of a government that doesn't work for them and doesn't put their needs first. And they're willing to support someone who will put their needs first and proves it by not taking corporate money, and relies on the grassroots support of voters and people around the country to support the campaign. But and I tell folks too, I said, listen, we might not agree on every issue, but I'm going to treat you with respect. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to be someone who's going to be honest with you. And that is that's a significant difference from the congressman that I'm running against.
Right. One of our RP members, Claudia, she wants to know what cities CD3 are. What?
Yeah. So it's a weird horseshoe shape. Been gerrymandered a little bit. Starts down in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and then heads north to Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, and Bentonville. And people might know Bentonville because that's where Walmart is headquartered. Walmart is from Bentonville, Arkansas. So that doesn't come as a surprise that my opponent, his second largest donor is Walmart. His first largest donor is Tyson Food, which is also in the district. And John Oliver, a couple years ago, did a segment about his support of the poultry industry as a result. Then it loops over and it hits Harrison and some more rural counties, and then heads down to Russellville. So it's a big horseshoe shape. Most of the population lives in the northwest corner. We call it Northwest Arkansas, where Fayetteville, where the University of Arkansas is, and then Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, that area.
Yeah, I'm actually in Pennsylvania, so we're dealing with the whole redistricting thing. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's advantageous to do redistricting? Do you think it would work in your district?
Yeah, I absolutely support redistricting. I think gerrymandering is a yet another example of how the political parties care more about preserving their own power rather than putting the needs of people first. And all throughout the country, you can see the effects of that. Just so happens that over the last 10, 20 years or so, Republicans have controlled a lot of state houses, so they've redistricted things for their own advantage. Here in Arkansas, Democrats used to control the state and tried to redistrict for their advantage. I mean, it's something that both parties do. We've got to figure out a way to make it fairer and to make sure that people are represented correctly. And I think that's probably on a state by state basis, needing to have an objective, nonpartisan commission that sets the districts. And I think that would probably be the best approach. My guess is it's probably something that's going to have to be mandated by the Supreme Court at some point, because I can't imagine that we've seen courts throw out district lines, and I think that's probably the direction that it's going to go. Now, I mean, some states they've thrown them out very close to the elections. The elections are right around the corner, and people aren't sure what district they're in. That's a little scary to me, just from the logistical side of things. But we absolutely need to address gerrymandering, because it's a way that the party establishments put their own power ahead of people.
Absolutely. Something I was interested to find out is actually for over 20 years you have been a minister. And weirdly enough, I've had several on my show who are candidates now. So my biggest question is, will you follow through with separation of church and state?
Absolutely. I am not running for Congress because I want to take America back for Jesus. That is not my perspective at all. I grew up in real strict fundamentalism. So I grew up now living in the South. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was a part of a denomination there, and that we weren't allowed to have anything to do with the Southern Baptists because they were too liberal. And just to kind of give you a sense of how conservative I grew up. So I understand that mindset. And then about 15 years ago now, I went through a real kind of crisis of faith that led to us coming to Arkansas. We moved here 13 years ago. To start a new church, and it's a much different kind of church. We call it it's a progressive evangelical church. It's a place where people from all different backgrounds come together. It's a place where doubts and questions are okay. It's a place where not everything's black and white. And it's a place where everybody's welcome. And when we say everybody's welcome, we actually mean it. Every church says that, but they don't really mean it. We actually mean it. And so, I'm running for Congress because I'm concerned about the direction of the country in general, and saw this as an opportunity for me to get involved. It's not a ministry of our church or something that is some kind of religious crusade for me at all. That's not my perspective. Absolutely support the separation of church and state, and think in fact that we need more people of faith who will actually work to protect the separation of church and state, because it's better for the state, and frankly, it's better for the church too.
Absolutely. That was always my like, oh, I gotta ask them this because I'm a total heathen. So,
Yeah.
um, we talked about no money from corporations, and touched on a little bit on Medicare for all. What are your main reasons for putting Medicare for all or universal healthcare on your platform?
Yeah. There's really, I believe there's really good moral and economic reasons to support Medicare for all. For me, the acceptable number of Americans without health insurance and without health coverage is zero. Like these debates that happen that, well, 30 million Americans are going to lose their coverage. Well, it's not that bad. It's only going to be 24 million Americans. I'm like, no. It's not 30 million or 24 million. The acceptable number is zero. Just morally, it's the right thing to do. But it also makes sense economically. And I look at it from the perspective of small businesses. Right now, the burden of providing health insurance is shouldered by small businesses. And I've got a buddy who owns a business here in town, and he is constantly monitoring the number of employees he has. Because as soon as he crosses the 50 full-time employee threshold, he's got to provide health insurance. It's going to be a major cut into his bottom line. So he hires a lot of temps and does things so, to preserve, his bottom line in running his business. And I think like the system right now is actually keeping this small business from growing and creating jobs. If we had a system where everybody had health coverage, he could grow his business without any concern for that. And I think about today, I'm sure here in Northwest Arkansas, where it's such a innovative place and so many great ideas come out of this area. I imagine that today there was probably a woman sitting at her desk at work who has the idea for like the next great American company. She's got like this fantastic idea, but she's got a daughter at home who has a pre-existing condition. And so she can't quit her job and chase her dreams because she can't lose her health coverage. And I wonder about how many entrepreneurs are hampered by the system as it is. I talked with a couple from Eureka Springs that moved to Eureka Springs, which is a town in our district, to open a store and to chase their dreams. And they moved from Texas, and they are proud Republicans. And they told me, they said, listen, the number one biggest bill we pay every month is paying for our health insurance. She's a cancer survivor, and it's tremendously expensive for them. And they're scared they're going to lose their business because the system doesn't work for them. And they're, bright red Republicans who say the number one issue for them right now, as they vote, is someone who will stand up for fixing the healthcare crisis once and for all, and making sure that people have the health coverage they need. So I think you can look at it when you get outside of all of, people sometimes call me a socialist and ridiculous things like that. When you actually get outside of all of the ridiculous rhetoric and look at the way the system works right now, how it hampers small business, and if we had a Medicare for all system, what it would mean for our economy, it would be fantastic.
Absolutely. I've been in healthcare for about 10 years. So I see these people and filing bankruptcy because they have $100,000 in medical debt and all these things. And it's heartbreaking, and it needs to change. Absolutely. So it's good that people are warming up to it. You also talk about green energy on your platform. Can you touch a little on that? Is it, are people very concerned about the environment where you live?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I talk with a lot of what I call social justice evangelicals. There's a lot of younger evangelicals who have grown up Republican. They've gone to church all their lives. Their parents took them to church, and they care about things like immigration and healthcare and the environment. And they don't hear their Republican leaders talking about these issues. They matter to them, and often it's motivated by their faith, because they take seriously the idea that there's a principle of Christian faith that we ought to take care of the planet, and they're motivated by that. And so, I think investing in a green energy economy is one of those things that is good for the planet, and it's good for the economy. And often the environmental debate gets framed as, well, this would be good for the environment, but it's bad for the economy. If we invest in a green energy economy, we actually create jobs while we're doing proactive, positive things to reduce the impact of climate change and improve the environment. And so, people are absolutely open to that. Unfortunately, I think as people rank the issues that are most important to them, there's few people that rank that one near the top, unfortunately. But it is something that matters to people. And I know, I've got 4 kids, and I think about, well, what kind of world do I want to leave my kids and my grandkids that maybe someday I'll have. When you start hitting an age where you think about those things, it becomes more important.
Absolutely. Mark, he's one of our teammates. He wants to know if you're familiar with what MMT is.
That's is it the monetary system?
Modern monetary theory. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the idea basically that the government can just kind of invent money, right? Like banks do when they provide loans.
Right. Exactly. Federal taxes don't fund spending. So we already have the means to do all of these things. But they're saying we have all this debt, and if we can't afford it, and if we do, we have to cut this to get that. And basically, when it comes down to it, we have the means. We print our own money. So basically, it's something we talk about a lot on our piece. So we always like to know where the candidates stand. Yeah.
And, full transparency, it's something I don't have a ton of knowledge about. I do have one I loosely call him my campaign manager has sent me a number of articles that are on my reading list that include a number of articles on MMT. And so it's something I'm going to be schooled on soon as I work down through that list of articles that I'm reading on. But it's something that obviously, makes a lot of sense in just pragmatically how we're doing things. The tough thing is, what we'll need is candidates as well as leaders in media and other places who can educate the American public. Because, most people think in terms of, well, the government operates like a family does with their budget, and people kind of gravitate to what they know. So re-educating people of actually, this is actually how it works. That will be a process that a lot of us are in the middle of.
Absolutely. Mark wants to know if he can have your website. He wants to post it in the comments.
Sure. My website is robb2018.com. It's ROBB2018.com.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. And it's the same for Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. It's Robb2018, ROBB2018. If people want to find me on any of those platforms, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Something you touched on a little is immigration. I know that's something huge going on right now, and with DACA and the concerns we're seeing. We just saw the other day a gentleman who served 2 tours overseas was just deported. Is there something in your area? Are you guys prevalent with ICE or anything like that? Are you seeing things that are dealing with immigration status?
Yeah, for sure. There's a growing Hispanic population here in Northwest Arkansas. The city I live in is about 28% Hispanic, and so absolutely. There are folks who are a part of our communities, part of our neighborhoods, who live in a lot of fear that families are going to be separated, that they're going to be profiled, that they're going to be kicked out of the country that they have come to and love and are working to contribute to. And so, for me, this is one of those things. The last time we had significant immigration reform, it was a Republican president who signed it into law. And Ronald Reagan, I know probably a lot of progressives, don't want to hear about Ronald Reagan, but he used to talk about America being this shining city on a hill. It was this positive, optimistic vision of the country. It's so different from what we see now with the current president, where we've got to wall everything off and live in fear. I prefer that optimistic approach. I think we need to have a welcoming culture, a welcoming society, and people should not have to live in fear because of their country of origin or the tone of their skin. And we absolutely need to dial back the rhetoric that divides people and dehumanizes them. And my opponent loves to use divisive rhetoric and call people illegals and things like that. And it like that. Just not helping at all. We could have some substantive debate on policy, but let's treat people with the dignity and respect they deserve, because they're human beings. And I think that is absolutely needed. I don't support the wall at all. I think it's a ridiculous idea. I support a swift path to citizenship for people that are here, and then streamlining the process to make it easier so we don't end up in the mess that we're in again.
Agree. And, that's also something different with Democrats and Republicans. People think that it's a Republican thing, that they don't want immigrants here. But if you do the research, Obama actually did his fair share of deportations. So that's really interesting that you're campaigning supporting them. Something else, something you don't have on your platform that I was curious about is minimum wage. Do you support the fight for 15 or higher, lower? Where's your stance on that?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And as a brand new Congress candidate, I support increasing the minimum wage to $15 and don't have it specifically listed out on my website right now, but it is absolutely something that I've been vocally supportive of. And again, I try to make some of these arguments from a direction that will make sense to Republican voters, because I live in a bright red district. So, we talk about, listen, how many people live on government assistance program.
Uh-oh. Sorry, guys. I'm going to have him click back in. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm gonna have him click back in. It looks like he froze. So Johnny, are you being serious that you used to be a minister? That surprises me, but it's pretty rad. Hey Mark, looks like you may have a fun conversation with Stephen Michael, I believe. Yes, Stephen Michael. How about it? There you are. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Johnny, you grew out of it. You're a recovering minister. That's awesome.
Hey, Joy, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just talking to the audience.
Were you telling them about all the technical difficulties we had in trying to get this this conversation going today? Oh, I apologize for that.
Know me, because my regular viewers know that I am extremely inept when it comes to IT. So,
well, my computer wasn't working, so I had jumped over to my wife's, and I didn't grab the cord, and the battery died on me. So I apologize. That was all my fault.
Oh, that's okay. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, which is not on your page either, is voter reform. Any kind of electoral reform. What do you think we can do in the future? Paper ballots, open primaries, automatic voter registration. What would you like to see, not just in Arkansas, but across the states?
Yeah, all of those things I think make a lot of sense. When it comes to paper ballots, that's something that on the one hand I hesitate with, because I'm just, by personality, I tend to be an early adopter with technology, and I like the idea of technology improving and streamlining the process and making it easier. But man, it's just not trustworthy at this point. And as certainly the last election proved and has continued to prove, we just can't trust technology right now. And so, yeah, a number of those things, making Election Day a national holiday is something that makes a lot of sense to me. Ranked choice voting makes a lot of sense to me, to help break the stranglehold that the two parties have. But ultimately, I think the most significant thing that we can do when it comes to voter reform, and let me say too, before I jump to that, we absolutely need to make sure that that we've got voter protections for people, to make it easier for people to vote, regardless of the color of their skin. The voter ID laws and other things like that seem very targeted at people of color, are really, really problematic and need to be stopped. But I think, the most significant thing we can do, and I mentioned this when we got started, is address how campaigns are financed. People feel disheartened about the system because they feel like their vote doesn't matter, their voice doesn't matter, and that's because so many of our politicians, Democrat and Republicans, are bought and paid for by their donors, and we have got to elect people who are willing to put people first and not take corporate money. It's absolutely something that we've got to do. Now, we've got to, what I like to say is, we've got to play within, the system that we're in. We got to play the game as it is so that we can win, and then change the rules. And because the people that benefit from the system, my opponent and many others, they benefit from the system being the way it is right now, and they're not going to change the rules. And that's why we've got to elect grassroots candidates all over the country who don't take corporate money.
So do you deal with a lot of people who are just kind of defeatist and saying they don't want to vote? And then how do you convince them to do it? What's your process?
Yeah. So I talk a lot about how campaigns are financed, and because that's something that regardless of your party, that's something that that resonates with people, that makes sense to them. I also, especially when I'm doing like meet and greets and house parties and telling my story, I talk a lot about brand new Congress because, I've got a friend, Holly, who said to me, she said, listen, I have been so frustrated by politics and so discouraged. And this is, since she heard about brand new Congress, she's like, this is the first time I've had hope because there's actually a plan. There's something that we could do together that could work. And people are responding that way. It's giving them hope. And people have that sense of, like, I think the election of 2016 was a real wake up call for a lot of people that we can't just go along and let things happen. We all have to do something. I'm the kind of person that, as long as we're doing something, let's do something big. That's why I'm running for Congress, because I'm a go big or go home kind of person. But other people have gotten involved. They've joined groups. They've written to their congressmen and senators. They've volunteered for campaigns, or they've donated, or they've posted on social media, stuff that before they never would have dreamed of doing. All of that is really good, positive energy that's good for the country. And we need to keep that going, because that's as many engaged, passionate, educated voters that we have, the better it will be for the country. Right
on. Phil said that cookies are done baking. He heard the thing. So
my wife has notifications turned on, so I'm bugged.
I was like, where's that?
Blame it all on my wife's computer.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about that you don't have on your platform is, and this is granted me being a little presumptuous, but how do you feel about the LGBTQ community? Just because you are a Republican in a red district and a minister, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I support marriage equality and think all people deserve equal protection under the law, regardless of their gender identity or their sexual orientation. Treating people as people used to be a Republican value, and it's something that we need to get back to. Republican Party used to be a party that was known for who it was for, not who it was against. And so I'm fighting for a vision of my party, but it's bigger than that for me. It's being on the right side of history. That we have got to make sure that everybody has equal protection under the law. Our church is in church terminology, we're a welcoming and affirming church. We're a church where everybody's welcome, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. Nobody's getting judged or dragged into conversion therapy at our church. I've conducted a couple of same-sex marriages. So this is an issue that again, for me, it isn't a partisan one. It's a humanity one.
Absolutely. People are definitely feeling you in the comments. You should look after our show. If there's something you want to leave our viewers with, something that resounds with them so they can check out your site, recommend you, hopefully donate a few dollars, what do you want to leave them with?
Yeah. Well, I would say, first of all, realizing this is a progressive group, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk. Listen, all I want to be is your favorite Republican. That's it. That's all I want to be, is your favorite Republican. I'm someone who is absolutely going to put the needs of people first. I'm absolutely committed to challenging the party orthodoxy in my party when it needs to be challenged, and to be someone who will stand up for people and will be their voice in Washington, D.C. I'm not taking any corporate money. I'm not taking any special interest group money, so that my loyalty can be with the voters who send me there. Now that means, we're running a grassroots shoestring campaign that very literally every donation makes a huge difference. My opponent has $1.5 million in the bank, and if he decides to, blow me away on TV commercials, he's going to be able to do that. But what he can't do is out organize us or out people us. He can outspend us, but he can't out organize or out people us. Every day we're out knocking on doors and talking to voters, and connecting with people. And if people want to support my campaign, they can do that at robb2018.com. There's a link there to my crowd pack page where they can donate $5, $10, $27, $2,700 if somebody wants to max out. That makes a huge difference. I had to pay the largest filing fee in the country. I don't know if you know this, but Arkansas has the highest ballot access fees in the country. Just to have my name on the ballot, I had to pay $15,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it is. Florida's next highest it's a little over 10,000, then Georgia's 5,000, and then most states you can either collect signatures or it's like maybe $1,700 is what most states are. Wow. I don't have a lot of money, especially after having to pay that huge amount just to have my name on the ballot. But it's a fight that we're fight because people deserve to have a choice and they deserve to have a voice in Washington. So if people are willing to donate, that makes a huge difference. People want to volunteer and make phone calls on my behalf, they can go to my website and click on the volunteer tab and do that. That would be a huge help. And then, spreading the word on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all those places where we help get the word out to voters and to supporters around the country, that all of that is deeply appreciated. We have so much more power than we imagine as people. We have so much more power that, we've given it up to our politicians. We've given it up to corporations and special interest groups, and we can take it back, and we can do that one race at a time. And so I would encourage people in the districts that they live to find the brand new Congress candidate or the Justice Democrat candidate or the grassroots candidate who's going to put the needs of people ahead of parties, and to support those people. And it's not always a Democrat. It often is a Republican like me, who's fighting this fight in the system as it exists, because people are most important, and we've got to do what needs to be done to support people in our country. So that's what this campaign's all about, and I would love people's support and help. They can check me out on all the platforms at Robb 2018. It's ROBB 2018.
Awesome. Well, you definitely have a few people in the comments saying you are their favorite Republican now. So that's good. Thank you so much for joining us. You are kind and awesome, and you have a great platform. So I'm hoping this gives you some exposure. Thank you guys for watching. Friday night at 8, I have a different time. I'm going to be interviewing Dija Aboud. She is the Muslim candidate from Arkansas. She's going to describe everything she's going through and her platform and all that good stuff. So we will see you Friday at 8. And once again, thank you so much, Robb. You're awesome, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Joy.
Thanks for watching, guys.